Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The Season 2 update arrived yesterday, including a raft of changes to the game itself, but also 2 new potential meta weapons arriving into the game. The pros are giving them a go, and as you might well expect, within a couple of hours, they've been fully gentleman's agreemented from the game. But some pro players certainly disagree with the decision on this one. Dashy, Ghosty among others, not at all happy that this brand new BP50 weapon has been eliminated immediately by the pro players before it's even really been given a proper shot. There's been some questions as well about Toronto, given the fact that Scrappy has been very vocal about pushing for this GA, whether they want the game to stay as similar as possible to when they dominated Major 1. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. So, we got the update yesterday. Rio is in, Skid Row is gone for Search and Destroy, Rio is in, Terminal is out for Hardpoint. There was some debate on that. We saw Scrappy debating it, of course, in yesterday's video. More changes, though, to the MCW. So, the game still, even after the earlier MCW nerfs to some of the attachments, is MCW dominated, AR dominated. They are trying to prevent that to some degree by nerfing the MCW again. And look, I don't really massively like the handling nerfs. I just think they make the gun feel clunky, and I don't really think it's very fun to play when your gun is still good, but it just gets more, annoying to use. Aim down sights time has been increased, sprint to fire time as well has been increased. So 2 nerfs to the MCW. Is it still going to be the go-to AR? Yes, apparently, because the new potential alternative is not seemingly going to get used. This, however, is another change, which is, I would say, a very positive change, but I've got to say, it's a very substantial change as well. So this is the change to health regeneration, as they have shown here. It used to take 4 seconds before you would even start regenerating health from, let's say you're at 1 health or whatever, you would take 4 seconds to go from 1, and then it would take you another roughly 4 seconds to regenerate from 1 back to 150. 7.7 seconds, it says. The total time to get back. It's now going to take only 5 seconds to do the same thing. So after 3 seconds, you start regenerating health, and then from 1 to 150, after 5 seconds, now you get all the way back. So let's say you go down to 100 health. It's only 3 seconds rather than 4 when you start to regenerate your health, which I think is probably a good change. It's going to make the gameplay more fast-paced. Sometimes you were one-shots for what felt like forever, and you just couldn't chell. So I really like this move. It's not to the same extent as Stim Shot from Black Ops 4, which was outrageous in the other extreme, in the sense that you could get shot and then immediately be back to 150 within a second after bopping behind cover. So it still means that if you get shot at, you've got to back down, and if you shoot at someone and they're weak, you can go and chow them. They're not going to be regenerating immediately, but they will regenerate faster. So I think that's a pretty good change from Cellium. I think it will improve the pace of the game and possibly helps SMGs as well. Another map that could well be nice for SMGs is here on Vista. These are the hardpoint locations. This map, as I expected, looks just fantastic, right? The pros, from what we've heard so far, seem to really like it. Just going through some of the hardpoint locations here, there's Seaside vibes, there's maybe Arsenal vibes, or some sort of Black Ops 4 style vibe on this one, and then there's even some sort of parts of the map that remind people of Raid. They've clearly taken inspiration here. I know that Departures as well was listed as a map that apparently has been inspired, or at least it's intended to be somewhat competitive. So those are 2 maps, Vista and Departures, that will need to be tested. Even this, reminds me a little bit of even Throwback from Infinite Warfare. There's just good vibes. Parasite's played it, others have played it, and he says, Vista Hardpoint looks good. Ben J and Asim, First Peep, seems like there is some competitive upside for these maps in certain modes. The question is, are they going to be in now, or are they going to be in for Major 3? Because it's next Friday, so a week tomorrow, when the matches start up again for the Major 2 qualifiers. So are we going to get this map in time for then? Kalista says, no, it's not possible. Not because, even though this is probably part of the reason, the pros are too lazy, but actually because of the CDL decisions. So as Ben says, curious then if CDL teams are going to test it out and give feedback ASAP. Clay says, there is no as soon as possible. We cannot make changes that fast. Stage 3 would be the soonest. And people are like, well, why? You've got a week to do it, The game is, the game's just changed here on the Wednesday, so why not give them a few days over the weekends? Realistically, if the pros could scrim this map for 3 to 4 days, they would get a good idea of what should happen, and therefore, maybe Invasion Hardpoint, which is probably the next one to go. Maybe there's debate on that, but let's say Invasion Hardpoint was the next one to go after Terminal, then, that could be gone as well, which I think would be a positive, and apparently Vista plays really well. I haven't had the chance to play it myself quite yet, but as Clay says, we can't do it because the deadline for submitting map changes was last night. Don't ask me, bro, ask the CDL. So this is like, okay, hang on a second here, right? We're in an environment where the patch update arrived Wednesday. Everybody knew it was arriving Wednesday. There were brand new maps into the game arriving Wednesday that were meant to be good for competitive play, and the CDL set the deadline for Tuesday? Like, are we serious right now? But apparently the reason is Spinner Spence here from the league mentions that they spent the last 5 days testing Rio. We don't have the time to do that again to test 2 new maps, especially with a Challengers Cup this weekend. Has to work for both levels of competition, which is, you know, that sounds good on paper, but let's not forget, for the first Challengers event in Boston, there was the biggest overhaul we've ever had, really, to the competitive play right before that event that the Challengers had to play on going into the Boston kind of Challenger side. So it's not like there haven't been massive changes. I know they say, oh, you know, we want to make sure the Challengers Cup is okay, but I mean, come on, right? The Challengers had to play on a brand new patch immediately with basically no practice, but apparently now we're all concerned about them making sure they have the same things for some time. I don't really know, right? And I think it would be nice if they could at least give it a try, especially when we've got like the likes of aBeZy here in a Twitch chat saying, get Visa in the rotation ASAP. Everybody wants it in. So, okay, maybe not everybody wants it in, but apparently then the pros that have given it a go, they like it, they think it's good, but the CDL, apparently they can't do it, right? So we shall see on this one whether they would make any changes, because if the pros are really vocal on trying to get Vista in, then the CDL might say, all right, yeah, you know what, maybe we'll make the deadline Monday instead. There's no reason why they can't necessarily change their mind on this one, but, you know, I wouldn't necessarily expect them to do so on the information we currently have. So this was then reflected in ranked play. Rio Search is in, Skid Row's gone, Rio Harpwin is in, Terminal is gone as well. Possibly more to change on that. But the big drama of last night really was with regard to the meta. So we have had, for the last several years, a 2-weapon meta. 1 AR, 1 SMG. The best weapon metas we've ever had really are, okay, Black Ops 3 was phenomenal, but in terms, it was some exception to some degree because there were so many weapons used in that game, in large part due to ban and protect as well. People would ban out the VMP, so you'd have to use the Pharaoh or the Kuda, and then from the AR side, any of the M8, the XR2, the Shiva, the Man of War, the HVK were all viable. It was just fantastic stuff. We haven't had that for a long time now, and we typically have a 2-weapon meta. This game, of course, it's the Rival, and then it's the MCW. However, JP says, new meta developing. So there were a couple of new weapons that got added into the game yesterday, one of which looked like a bit of a flex gun. I don't know whether this is a consistent trend. I feel like it really is, but they'll add DLC guns into the game. Treyarch actually banned them from ranked play just because, you know, the DLC guns never usually get allowed in ranked, at least immediately, unless they become meta weapons. And it is also a feeling of mine and many others that these weapons they add in are deliberately very powerful to kind of, you know, force people to grind and unlock the DLC guns or whatever, right? So there's new weapons into the game. There was the Ram 9 that is being tested as an alternative for the Rival 9, which I'm not sure if there's really been any conclusion to this yet as to whether it's potentially another viable weapon in that role, but the big story really was on the BP50. So this is a brand new AR that was added into the game, banned in ranked, but they were looking to use this weapon in scrims yesterday, and they were giving it a try. As we see here, Boston Breach say we have a flex weapon. The BB50 is appearing in scrims, and it feels really good. Take over the lobby like what Priestah's been putting on. So seemingly we had a new gun into play. Now, I was not getting my hopes up about this at all, because if you guys have been around this scene for some time, you never get excited about a new meta because the pros always just get rid of it, and we're stuck with what we have. You know, the status quo is difficult to change for many teams, and, you know, teams that like the MCW Rival meta probably in favor of keeping it the same way. And this is generally the feeling with GAs, is that if you're good with a weapon or with a certain meta, you're going to vote not to change it. If you're at the bottom of the league, so you're not so good, you're probably going to vote to change it. If you like a certain map, you'll want to keep it. If you don't like a certain map, you won't want to keep it, even if it might not be good competitively. We know how it goes at this point, and sure, maybe there are some teams that actually make decisions on what they believe is the best for competition, but a lot of the time decisions are made on what's best for them as a team. So this is why we need a commission to make these type of decisions. Now, is the BP50 too strong? It might well be too strong. I mean, if you look at the numbers here, and as I've just mentioned, lots of these DLC guns are very powerful, as has typically been the case. And if you look at some of the numbers here, just comparing the time to kill BP50 versus MCW, and then you consider the handling factors, which make it far better to use than the MCW. Now, certain longer range fights, and given the MCW headshot multipliers, definitely the MCW, I think, can still be viable in a BP50 situation where that weapon is also allowed. And the frustrating thing, I think, from the competitive standpoint is that the pros try this for maybe an hour or two, and then they think they know what is actually going on. If they were forced to try it for a couple of days, they might figure out that actually, you know what, the BP50 is very good, but it doesn't necessarily replace the rival. It doesn't necessarily replace the MCW, and there are potential, you know, maybe the BP50 becomes the meta gun, but the rival and the MCW are still viable in certain circumstances, and therefore we have a 3-weapon meta. But the pros, sometimes with preconceived notions on what they want to be true, because I also think there's some degree of confirmation bias here. People hear about the BP50 being good, they go into scrims, trying the BP50, expecting it to be too strong. They get beamed across the map by it and they say, yep, the gun's too strong, it's got to go. And that is more likely to be true if you're a team that really likes the current meta, as maybe Toronto do. So Scrappy says, we're going to GA these new guns, right? There's 8 BP50s on the map. But if that's actually true and the BP50 is so strong that it replaces every other gun all of the time, then sure, probably a gentleman's agreement on it is the way to go, because we at least have 2 guns in the meta rather than just 1. And there were clips such as this going around here as a search and destroy between the FaZe Black guys and the Ravens, when Clay absolutely beams. I mean, who is this who get beams here? Brack across the map here, which is, well, impressive shots. And this is with the BP50, who just hits every single bullet. But look, he's a pro player holding an angle that he holds. And we'll see some response to that here from Dashy in a second. But Dashy was clearly in favor of, you know, getting this change, as he says. No point to even get excited for new weapons anymore. It just gets instant GAs as soon as they spawn in. Scrappy and Dashy then went back and forth on this, and actually a few of these tweets got deleted by Scrappy, which is pretty rare. Usually Scrappy leaves the stuff up on the timeline. But yeah, you're telling me that it's not busted, Brandon? Come on. The MCW is literally better than both. What are we talking about here? And basically says, you're faded. Please use 4 BP50s against us on Invasion and we'll smoke you because the MCW is better at those gunfights. Scrappy says, yeah, gladly we will because it's the best gun. So clearly major disagreements here. And, you know, maybe seeing shots like this from Clay, you might think, well, is the MCW just completely useless now because the BP50 does it all? But Dashy says, look, a pro player hits all his shots on a standard cost that he holds every day. No surprises here. And Ghosty also agrees with it being in the game, as he says, look, post my 10 spree with the MCW, pretty much saying that, like, the MCW is still an absolute god gun here and is definitely viable. Joe Deceives, though, seems to agree with Saint and the guys on the Ravens, saying, wow, we want a 3-weapon meta, like these guys are morons. Your brother Ghosty wants it in. What's going on? Kremp says he wasn't doing that to me, etc., right? So the pros seem somewhat torn on this, and as we say, Scrappy deletes his initial tweet. He then goes on to say that the gun, you know, the MCW doesn't have rapid fire. It's not nearly as close to OP as the BP50 is. There are 8 BP50s on every map, which might be true in some scrims they played. Is that necessarily true if they played for a bit longer? I don't know. So it's a classic situation. New meta in the game, a new potential meta in the game. Some teams want to try it. OpTic seem included in that one. Thieves potentially seem included in that one. Some teams want it gone. And I'll be honest, from the evidence I've seen, it does look like a very, very strong weapon indeed. And it might be too strong. But the thing is, the pros aren't really going to wait. Apparently, it's basically already gone now, right? As Dashy says, it's already chalked. It's already been GA'd. And as I say, there's arguments that the teams that want to do this are teams that potentially stand to benefit from the present meta, or just teams that, generally speaking, would not like to have a do-it-all gun. Whereas a guy like Dashy, who, of course, you know, famously dominated with weapons like the Maddox back in Black Ops 4, the BP50 might be similar to that in some respects. You can understand why there might be some incentive for them to get it in the game. But lots of drama. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.